Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Sunday, March 6th, 2022. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am here to discuss the NBA DFS slate for the day. I'm going to go over all 8 games. So those that are playing the early slate or afternoon slate or main slate, you've got a split between FanDuel, Draftkings, and Yahoo, how they're spreading those out. So let's cover all bases, make sure we have all 8 games covered for you, and try to smash here as we begin to look at another week starting tomorrow, where we're going to have games throughout the week as well. So we want to finish on a strong note here on this weekend, try to get some takedowns and get after it. I'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Prize Picks. If you haven't tried Prize Picks yet, what are you waiting for? It is the most fun aspect of DFS / prop betting in the industry. It is a lot of fun and some good opportunities to make some money. So go to prizepicks.com. If it's your first time depositing with them, you want to definitely take advantage of this offer. You get a match all the way up to $100. And it goes right into your account. It's not just little by little released into your account. You just go to, like I say, you go to prizepicks.com, use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, no space. And if anything up to $100, you get a complete match. So use that promo code, get up to a free $100 on that first deposit, and give it a shot. We also are doing a lot more Prize Picks content here at DFS Coach Talk. We'll be discussing that in our Discord and releasing our picks every day as well. So, all right, let's get into this. I know everybody probably has a busy Sunday plan, or maybe it's your kickback and relax day and watch some sports. Good thing about this is we have basketball starting at 1 Eastern, and the last game starts at 10 Eastern. So pretty much can go all day long with basketball, which is my favorite thing. So really looking forward to that. All right, we're diving in. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that thumbs up and subscribe button. And while you're at it, click that little alert in the upper corner. That'll let you know every time one of our podcasts posts. All right, here we go. We're diving in. It's a 1 o'clock game Eastern. It's the Brooklyn Nets and Boston Celtics. Boston is favored by 3.5. It's a 227.5 total. 112 implied for Brooklyn, 115.5 for the Boston Celtics. Brooklyn comes in 32 and 32, so they have evened their record. Boston 38 and 27. Any news here? We've got Seth Curry probable, so we're expecting him to play today. We know Ben Simmons will still be out for quite a while here for the Nets. For Brooklyn, for Boston, the big thing is Jaylen Brown. He's listed as questionable. We know he missed the last game, so I believe this is a true questionable. But the good thing is we are going to have this before that early game, so we'll know what the situation is there. And Naismith is out for the Boston Celtics. Statistically speaking, Brooklyn's 11th in the league in pace, Boston only 23rd. So between the two, somewhat of a neutral look in pace. Defensively, it's somewhat the same thing, but a little bit more on the defensive end. Brooklyn's 19th and Boston is 2nd. So Boston has done a fantastic job, especially the last couple of months, to move right into that top 2 spot. So you got average pace, pretty good defense, especially on the Boston side, somewhat average or slightly below for Brooklyn. A lot of things to look at in this game. It's a road game, so you've got Kyrie Irving back with Kevin Durant. It's been a minute since those two have played together, so that makes it very interesting. That's why this game is only a 3.5-point spread for Boston, even though it's in Boston. So Kyrie at 9.6 and KD at 9.9 make it interesting. KD looked great, I thought, when he came back here. He never misses a stride. I really don't think he's a human. I think he's a computer. But Anyway, those two guys, you could look at. I would lean a little bit more towards KD just because the way he looked, but not certainly two guys you have to race to. The second flight guys, it's interesting there. Curry at 5'1", Bruce Brown at 5'9", Drummond Drummond at 5'5", Aldridge at 4'2", Patty Mills, who decided to finally have a game the last game, which was out of nowhere. He's only 3'7". Dragic will be moved back to the bench. He got the start at point. He's 3'6". And then, James Johnson, Cam Thomas, Nick Claxton, those guys are getting minutes as well. So it's not as cut and dry as it was when they were down to just like one good player or no good players, and you had to choose between like Curry and Mills. But now it's more of, do you pay up for an Irving or Durant? If I do, I'd lean Durant. Or do you go a second flight guy against this tough defense of Boston? Who's the second flight guy to pick here? I would say between Curry and Brown for me, because I think the rotation of split at the big is just a little bit too risky for me. On the Boston side, it's very simple. If Jaylen Brown sits, then I'm going to race to Jason Tatum. 9-5 Jason Tatum seems pretty fair to me. If Brown doesn't play. If Brown plays with no restrictions, though, it definitely, switches the narrative for me a bit. Then, maybe a Marcus Smart at 6'1". Robert Williams' price is down to 6'4". His price had gone in the upper sevens there for a while. And then, after that, maybe Derek White off the bench at 5'3", but not looking to go too deep in that spot. All right, let's go to the second afternoon game. It's in the middle of the afternoon. It's a 3:30 affair. It's the Phoenix Suns at the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's a great game to watch. If you have a chance to get in front of the TV for a 3:30 Eastern game, this is certainly a great one to watch. You've got Milwaukee favored by 9 just because, Phoenix is missing their backcourt in essence. And which is a pretty big number. Phoenix has played well either way. The 229.5 total, very solid. 110.25 for Phoenix, a nice 119.25 for Milwaukee, who has definitely been scoring the ball a lot lately. Phoenix is 51-12. Milwaukee is 39-25. We know who's out, and it's a lot of guys. For Phoenix, it's Booker, Johnson, Kaminsky, Paul, and Saric. For Milwaukee, it's Connaughton, Hill, Lopez, and Matthews. So Phoenix, they were missing Booker and Paul in their backcourt. Now they add Cam Johnson to that list, who was the hero the last game. So it makes it even tougher for them. A couple of statistics, although, they're not as relevant with so many guys missing. Phoenix is 9th in the league defensively. In pace. Milwaukee's 8th. So you've got two top 10 teams in pace in the league. But I don't know if Phoenix doesn't try to slow it down a little bit without all of their stars in there. And then Cam on top of it, they may try to shorten the game a little bit. So I'm not counting on this to be quite the pace that we've seen from Phoenix most of this season. Defensively, Phoenix 3rd, Milwaukee 12th. So you've got two very stout, knowledgeable, solid defenses here. So a couple of things we can look at. Where do you go with the Suns? How do they stay in this game? Does it stay a single-digit spread like Vegas says? Cameron Payne is probably where you want to start at 4.8. They used him, a little minimally at first as they were getting him back to play. With Paul out, but now he's sort of back to really manning the point guard spot, and I think he's a really good play at 4.8. Landry Shamet is going to get a bunch of runs, super cheap at 3.3, and then they're going to have to count on some other guys to score the ball. Number one, I guess, would be Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges is 5'8", and without Cam and the other two guards, I mean, he's got to get up 20 shots today plus. I don't see any other way around it. The other sneaky guy that you may want to look at here is Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder doesn't shoot a lot, but he's usually efficient and can score the ball when needed. So I think he's a super sneaky play at 4.7. I think you're going to see his probably shot total the highest that he's had this season. So I like Bridges and Crowder at those super, cheap prices, really, for guys that are going to have to score the ball. After that, you have DeAndre Ayton as an option at 6.3. They certainly may go to him a little bit more. He has to face that Giannis and Portis defense in the paint, and he seems to do better, out in the break, getting lobs from certainly, our man Chris Paul. But I think they're going to have to use him, so he's not, a cross off, but he's not my favorite play because I don't, he can't create his own shot. He really needs to be set up with lobs, and he's more of a rebounder type guy that's going to get putbacks and those alley-oops, but he's not going to get that as much with the interior for Milwaukee. I think you're going to see Ayton widely owned and highly owned because of the shortness of the Phoenix rotation, but I don't know if he's going to be in my first lineup. I really don't. I think they can hold him to pretty much where he's at. 6.3 is tempting. I get that. And off the bench from Phoenix, I don't know, Aaron Holiday, Torrey Craig, you're going to get some of those guys. The other thing about Ayton, too, is remember he has McGee and Biyombo behind him, especially McGee, who's been playing well. For the Milwaukee Bucks, lots of options here, and very tough to determine who's going to go off against this Phoenix Suns team that, is missing 3 starters. Drew Holiday's been very good lately at 7.1, certainly can dial him back up. Chris Middleton's only 7.2, had a decent game the last game, but he has not shown the ceiling that he has in past years. The big question is, do you go up to Giannis at 11K? He is going to get some stout defense from Crowder, Ayton, McGee, all the guys in the paint that are going to try to slow him down. So, not a lock washer play, if you would, but certainly, Giannis is on the top of everybody's list all the time. Bobby Portis is all the way down to 6K, so I'm loving that price. I think he's a really solid play here. The only time I started really shying away from him, he was up there, 7.6, 7.7, and it became a little bit much. So a lot of good options. Not crazy about the bench for Milwaukee here, but some of the key guys, I think you really can dial up and expect them to do very well. All right, the third game that's not on the main slate. It's not on a lot of slates, but it is on some of the all day. If you want to play the single game, I figured, we're going to hit all 8 games here and make sure everybody's got a beat on what they want to do here to try to take down whatever they're going to take down. And maybe this is somebody's key game of the day. It's the Indiana Pacers at Washington Wizards. Washington favored by 4. It's a 227.5 total, 111.75 for the Pacers, 115.75 for the Washington Wizards. Pacers come in 22-43, Wizards at 28-34. Big list for Indiana of questionables, all important. Goga Bitadze, Chris Duarte, Lance Stevenson, all questionable. Guys that are out, McConnell, Turner, Warren. For Washington, probable, and I have to eat my words because it's Kristaps Porzingis. So I can't call him names because he's actually going to play, and he might be in play today. How about that? Wouldn't it be funny if I actually rostered Kristaps? I'm not going to, though. There's no doubt that he is going to be eased back in on a minutes restriction. I am not going to go there. I just think that would be a mistake. Also, they have Vernon Carey out. All right, so let's look at this. Statistically, we've got this weird Pacers team this year. They're 18th in pace, Washington 24th. So not great there, but the defense is awful. 26th for Indiana, 24th for Washington. So there will be points on the board here. There's no doubt about it. You've got, a different dynamic for Washington trying to slide Porzingis in there for a bit. Really muddies the waters there, like they have been. I mean, I have no idea with Gafford and Bryant and Porzingis and, I don't know what they're doing there. I don't think they know what they're doing, but it does make it tough for us on the DFS side. So Neto's been good, but he's 7-8 for goodness sakes. He's way up in price. Caldwell Pope's up. These prices are actually not consistent because they're single game prices. So I'm not even going to go over those because it's skewed. But still, Neto's price is up a little bit, but he's been producing. He's definitely getting more minutes than Ish Smith at the point. So you can look there. Caldwell Pope, GPP kind of play. He can bust 20 real points or, 4 real points. You just don't know. Kyle Kuzma certainly is the top play here for Washington. He's been consistently really good all year, and I think he is in this game as well. Between Kispert, though, the restricted minutes for Porzingis, Hashimura, Avdia, Smith, Bryant, Gafford, I just don't see a real clear path, to consistency, especially in cash and single entry lineups and contests. So for me, it's really just looking at Kuzma here, trying to work him into my lineup, and maybe Neto in a few spots, but not diving after him. I do like the pacer side of the ball, though. You've got Malcolm Brogdon, who looks like the real Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's playing very well and can be rostered here. Tyrese Halliburton, it's been interesting to see how Brogdon and Halliburton are playing together. Halliburton's still doing a fine job. I mean, he's getting to his numbers, and both of these guys, are playable. Buddy Hield's getting monster minutes. He's definitely an early favorite here of Coach Carlisle there. And at his price, it's fair, but it is up. He does get shots up. So, that's all you can really ask for when you roster a guy. And his assist ratio has been higher than it's ever been in his career. So Hield an option. And then you've got, the guy I've been really enjoying is Jalen Smith. I mean, he's coming off the bench, but he's getting big minutes. And man, he is a point per minute monster. I was really shocked that the Suns pretty much just let him go, gave him away for Torrey Craig. And he's a youngster on top of that, but he can score the ball and he can rebound. I really like Jalen Smith. He does have a tendency at times to get into foul trouble, but I think that in this instance, coming off the bench, he's still a really good, solid play. The other two guys, Brissett and Jackson, you got to talk about both of them. Brissett really shined there for about a week. Now that most of these guys are back, I think you'll see a little more regression with him, and his price needs to probably come down a little bit more. Isaiah Jackson is tough. I really like him, and it becomes interesting because Smith can play the 4 or 5. Jackson is sort of an undersized 5, so you may see those two run alongside of each other as well. So I'm not, crossing Jackson off either or Brissett. I think, having some good exposure to this pacer side is a good idea because they're really counting on some of these guys, that are getting those extra minutes. But, and that's the big but here, is what is the status of the other guys we talked about? Do we know for sure if Duarte, Stevenson, some of those, and Batazzi are going to be in? Because if they're in, then all of a sudden all that Pacers interest shrinks down for me because it's going to be a lot more split minutes. So keep an eye on that news. Strong on the Pacers for me in this game alongside Kuzma. If those guys sit, if they don't, then you're going to have to sort of minimize your exposure there. All right, main slate. 5-gamer, very doable 5-gamer. It's a pretty interesting one. We've got our highest total in the very first game, so we're going to dive right into it. It's also a double-digit spread, though, as well. It's the Memphis Grizzlies at the Houston Rockets. Memphis is favored by 11. It's a 237.5 total, so really good number here. 124.25, which is a massive number. Implied for Memphis, 113.25 for the Houston Rockets. Coming into this game, Memphis is 44-21, Houston 15-48. Only designations here, very little. Pons is questionable for Memphis. Dylan Brooks remains out. For Houston, the big question will be Dennis Schroeder. He's questionable. That certainly affects that backcourt rotation. And then my buddy Garuba and John Wall, who I just waste everybody's 5 seconds each day by mentioning both of those gentlemen. All right, so looking at this game, we've got fantastic pace. Memphis 4th and Houston 1st. So by far the best combination of pace on the slate. So very much attention grabbing there. Of course, we know Houston's dead last in defense, which always makes their games so much more, rosterable. But Memphis is pretty tough. They're 7th in the league in defense. They've been, after a slow start the first month of the year, since then, they've been a top 5 defense all year. So sitting in 7, they will be a little bit more stingy with Houston. The interesting part will be, does Memphis try to rest anybody with the fact that, they're a double-digit favorite here? They are hot on the heels of trying to catch Golden State. Golden State just lost last night. So I do think the Grizz dial up their main guys, but, it's yet to be seen. All right, so I guess, you got to start with John Morant. Where else do you start? He's 10-5, great pay-up option. Houston's backcourt defense is atrocious. If this game stays to 11, like Vegas says, Ja may be the best pay-up on the slate. At 10-5, they really have no one that can guard him. Porter, Green, and Schroeder are not good defensive backcourt players. So, I don't know who else they try to put on him. They could take a little try with Eric Gordon or Garrison Matthews, but I doubt it. So I think Ja sees this game the way he wants to. Plus, Houston is not any defensive juggernaut in the paint by any stretch. So you've got Ja, as the guard that has the most finishes in the paint in the entire league. So Ja's probably going to be my number one pay up right now. And hopefully that stays that way for the main slate. You've got a couple other options that are less expensive in Desmond Bane, all the way down to $6K. Jaren Jackson, who's been inconsistent at 6'5". Steven Adams, he really disappointed in this last game, but, he's back and he's 6'1", so his price is decent. And then, off the bench, it gets tough. Kyle Anderson at 4'6" has put up some really good games lately. But I think, you stick to that main group. Morant, Bane, Jackson, Adams is your best options for the Grizzlies. Houston, it's the first night of a back-to-back for them. Not that it means all that much because they're so young and they play that same rotation. And they go pretty deep. I mean, they look at Martin, Schroeder, Matthews, Şengün, Christopher. Those guys all get minutes. So they are going 10 deep here. But, you've got the Schroeder news, which is important because if Schroeder doesn't play, then you're going to get some additional minutes from that bench for sure. If he does, it cuts into Porter and Green a bit. So if I am going to go Ja and second Grizzly on one side, I definitely want some exposure to Houston. And that's the tough part. Memphis's defense is good. You've got Christian Wood at 8K, which is very fair. He is a guy that you could look at here. He's playing pretty well. I'm just always afraid that they play him 26, 28 minutes. And I want 35 minutes from Christian Wood if I'm going to dial him in there. So that is something we have to examine more and then maybe take a risk with. But after that, with Schroeder out, you definitely can look at a 6'4" Porter or a 5'6" Green. I definitely think Green has scored the ball more lately and can be considered. So I don't mind either one of those guys if Schroeder's out. If Schroeder's in, makes it a little bit tougher, because he's really been scoring the basketball. I'm hoping they actually sit him because it's the first night of a back-to-back and maybe they dial him up tomorrow. So I will consider that. Jayshawn Tate's always tempting because he's, only 5'2", but, you don't know for sure. He gets good minutes and sometimes he can do some good things, get you some stocks and everything with that. But it's a risk because he also has some very dud games as well. So more of a GPP focus for me. I don't trust Gordon at all. And again, those other guys off the bench just are not going to be in my first lineup for sure. All right, we go to another 7 o'clock game. It's the Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder. We've got our biggest spread on the board and certainly our biggest chance at a blowout, although the Thunder have been very competitive lately in certain games. Some games they just lay down, look like a young team, and get steamrolled. But Utah has not exactly been the sharpest on their game lately either. So let's look at this game. Utah at Oklahoma City Thunder. Utah by 13, a healthy 224 total, 118.5 implied for Utah, 105.5 for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Utah comes in 39-23, the Thunder 20-43. Juancho Hernan-Gomez is questionable for Utah, may get a few minutes off the bench. The big news is Mike Conley is out. It's going to be a rest game for him, as Utah also plays on the first night of a back-to-back, and they often sit Conley one of those two games, and they choose this one against the Thunder very wisely. So that does open up some minutes for Clarkson and more usage and assist ratio for Mitchell right on down the line. For Oklahoma City, I still think they need to be fined for sitting all these guys. I don't see how that can possibly be true, that all these guys have injuries and etc. But anyway, Aaron Wiggins is questionable. The rest of these guys are all out. So they have injuries, if you would call them that. That's Dort, Favors, Giddey, Jerome, Muscala, Robinson, Earl, and Williams. Sort of crazy and doesn't seem real. They definitely are going for that number one pick, not that they need, more than the 17 picks that they already have, and no direction or I don't know what they're doing. All right, so this game, we look at it. Statistically speaking, you've got just a bit below average pace, 19 and 16 respectively, but two good defenses. The Thunder's defense is a pain in the neck. Even without their man Lou Dort, they've been tough. They're 10th and 11th, Utah and Thunder, in defense. So even though it's a 224, which is a fair total, not a really target game for me, because I do think they'll slow it down a bit. And both of these teams do have the potential to D it up, even though recently Utah has been in some higher scoring games. Well, we first start with Donovan Mitchell, certainly the best option in this game, especially with the veteran Conley sitting down. He's 9.3, which is fair. I think that's a fair price for him. After that, Bogdanovich at 5.3 often disappoints. I haven't gone with Royce O'Neal in a long time because there's always so much value on the slate. You're going to get some time probably from Trent Forrest sneaking in there at 3.1. A little sneaky, but not guaranteed minutes. Certainly Clarkson at 5K. He's just plummeted in price, but he has not been good this year. He really hasn't. But maybe in this instance, I need a sip of coffee. Thank you. Maybe in this instance, Clarkson's able to dial up a little bit. Certainly not much risk there at 5K. Little Daniel House probably in there at 3.3. Hassan Whiteside's been playing good, but backup center to Gobert at 4.8. And really after that, it's a crapshoot. So my focus is either on Donovan Mitchell at 9.3 or Rudy Gobert at 8.5, because we know the Thunder cannot defend in the paint. As long as Rudy plays, if the game stays close enough, I don't see how he doesn't get 15 rebounds plus here. I mean, they're not going to be much resistance, but there's not going to be a ton of shots because I think the pace will be down a little bit. But I'd go right to the main guys in Mitchell and Gobert here and really not try to scramble unless you want to just take the bait on a 5K Jordan Clarkson. I think he'll be very popular, by the way. But I'm not totally sold. On the Thunder side, really, it almost always begins and ends with SGA. He is 10.4, which is expensive, but everything goes through him. He's going to get the most shots up. He's certainly going to be the most active and can definitely be considered here as maybe a second pay up option. Certainly getting the consistency of getting shots up, getting the minutes. He's definitely been the winner with all those other guys sitting out. So SGA high on my list. Trey Mann slowed down a little bit. He's only 5'5". He was starting to look like really the second option here, but he's leveled out a bit. Not a bad play though at that price. The guy that'll be pretty popular and is getting bigger minutes and being more active is our buddy Pokacheski. Poku's a 5'3", and he's rebounding and scoring the ball, can knock down the three. So, Poku definitely in my sights for today. The other bigs, right now, I'm done trying to mess with that too. Baisley 5'2", Roby 5'4", Krejcik 3K, Sar 3'2", Waters 3K, and now Wiggins possibly back at 3-1. Yes, all those guys dead cheap, almost dead min, but they're all splitting minutes. I don't see consistency there at all. Baisley was fairly consistent for a while. Roby has been a little bit lately, but they're still playing all those other guys I mentioned. Are those guys playable? Krejcik, Sar? Not quite. I do like Sar watching him play. I think he's got some ability, but not if he's getting 18 minutes or whatever the case may be. So for me, with Gobert, in the middle there defending and that rotation of bigs, not as interested in that spot. All right, we go to a 7:30 game. It is the Toronto Raptors and the Cleveland Cavaliers. It's a 7:30 game and a very, very low total here. Cleveland only favored by 5, which is great, but it's 208. That is crazy. 101.5 implied for Toronto, 106 for Cleveland. So we're talking slow down defensive old school basketball here. So old school, shout out to my buddy Gundacker, young blood. Hopefully he's catching a little bit of the pod today. We've got in this situation as far as in and out. First of all, Toronto's 34-29. Cleveland is 36-27. The big news, as it is every day with Toronto, and it's getting very old for like 10 straight days, Fred VanVleet is questionable, and we need to know if Fred VanVleet is playing. So, come on, Nick Nurse, make a decision, let us know, and quit busting our chops here. If he's in, he's playable with no restrictions. If he's not, Malachi Flynn is a good play. But again, we need that news because it could be a disaster either way if you don't hit that right. But guess what? Malachi Flynn is questionable. So now you've got some real dilemmas here. If there's no VanVleet and there's no Flynn, let's just say that, it's going to basically be split point guard, in my opinion, with Trent and Siakam playing that role. They could dust off some guys, that are deeper on their bench. It's possible, but I'm not going to count on that. I think it will be mainly Trent and Siakam acting as the pseudo point guards for the most part. Anybody else, if Svi gets in there, somebody just not worth it to me. So we need that news. If both of them are out, it elevates Trent and Siakam for me a lot. If one of them's in, then they're the guy to play, in my opinion. After that, Scotty Barnes has been decent. After that, though, with Birch and all these other guys, it's very difficult. But the bottom line is, with Flynn and VanVleet questionable, Anunoby, Johnson, and Wilson out. And then for Cleveland, you've got two guys, and they're both doubtful. I'm counting them out. Karis LeVert, Rajon Rondo. And then statistically backing, that low number up, you've got the 25th and 27th pace. Terrible. And then you've got two really strong defenses. Toronto's improving. They're 14th, but getting better. And then you've got Cleveland, as we know, have been in the top 5 for quite some time. They are 4th. So you got a small total. You got some guys possibly out for Toronto, and that's what we have to determine. So again, it's Trent Siakam for me. If those guys are both out, if Flynn plays instead of VanVleet, it's Flynn, vice versa. Barnes playable at 7K. Really not as crazy, though, about the whole mess with Birch, Achua, Boucher, Thad Young. I just don't want any part of that. And again, it could be Banton that gets the minutes if both Flynn and Van Vliet are out. It could be Svi, but I don't think it's worth the risk. And again, like I say, Trent and Siakam have sort of filled that void for them when they're in there in the rotation at points. So interesting, but news is going to be very important here. For Cleveland, we know pretty much what we're getting. Their rotation is pretty set. They've been pretty solid. Darius Garland has been fantastic, man. I enjoyed him so much. He was my lock the last game at like 2% ownership. It was crazy. And he only put like 60 burger up there. But, we'll see here. This pace really worries me. And, the defense is pretty sound here. And he's 8'6". So it's a pretty big commitment. I still like him, but he's not the plug and play 100% owned guy that I had last time. But I do like him. I think he's a really strong play. After that, it's always tough because you want to look at either Mobley or Allen. They're 6'7" and 7'6". Mobley has not played consistent lately. Again, I think he may be hitting that rookie wall a little bit. So I'm not going to go there. Jared Allen's tempting, though, at 7'6". He can definitely blow out his numbers and is a good option here. Other than that, I'm sorry, I got to go to coffee for a second time. Going to the bullpen. The old coach's voice is given out. So you've got Lauri Markkanen, who I like at 5'6", but again, Kevin Love is getting in there at 5'5". He's all the way down to so cheap, but it's tough to feel confident to me to roster either one of them because they're cutting into each other's time a little bit. They're cutting into each other's shots, and generally it seems like Bickerstaff's going with whichever one is hotter. Whoever's hitting the threes and getting it done, it's getting a little bit extra run. So I may look at those two guys just because their price is so cheap and they have such good ceilings, but there is definitely some incurred risk with going there. Jetty's been consistent off the bench. Don't think you need to go there quite this time because they don't like taking Okoro off the floor because of his defense. And certainly if, Garland, they need in there big minutes. So definitely like this game a little bit, considering it's got a 2.8 total. It's not a cross off for me. I think there's some good plays to be had, but certainly you don't want to, double up on this game with a bunch of players in, that slow of a pace game. Vegas knows their stuff. 208 is pretty low. I do sort of like the over, though, at that low number, but that's me. Not that I think it blasts through it, but I think there are some competent offensive players in this game, but certainly some competent defenders as well. All right, we have 2 games left. Real quickly here, we would love to have you join us here at DFS Coach Talk. Go to dfscoachtalk.com. All of our membership options are on there. If you want to dip your toe into the water, it's 3 days for $10. That's it. And you can check us out. We have the best Discord in the industry. Very supportive, very positive, a lot of fun, a lot of great information. Shout out to all of our terrific members out there. If you're watching right now on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button. Give us a quick comment. We would love that. I'll be on when this podcast premieres here shortly to answer any questions. You can always shoot us a message right there on YouTube. Let us know. We're DFS Coach Talk. If you want to look at us on Twitter, we're at DFS Coach Talk. I am personally at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. Any questions you have, anything, direct it right to us. We will be happy to share that with you. And keep following us on Twitter. Please, like and retweet our stuff. We put out a lot of information each day. Our Twitter plays of 3 top plays on the board and some prize picks information, etc. So we'd love to have you follow us there as well. And again, shout out to our presenting sponsor, Prize Picks. If you haven't tried them, it's time. PrizePicks.com. If it's your first deposit, you can get up to 100% match, all the way up to $100 by using the promo code Coach Talk. All one word, no space. All right, 2 games. We have an 8 o'clock game And then this island-ish game at 10 o'clock, 2 hours after the rest. It's going to be about, 10 hours into watching NBA. So it is going to be a long, nice following of basketball throughout the entire afternoon and evening. The 8 o'clock game is the New Orleans Pelicans, Denver Nuggets. Denver favored by 4, 227.5 total, 111.75 for the Pels, 115.75 for the Denver Nuggets. The Pels are 27-36. Denver's 37-26. So a mixture of numbers there, but definitely Pelicans making a run, playing much better. They've been smacking some teams around. Denver, has been remaining strong in that fight for position in the playoff hunt in the West. For the Pels, you've got Nance and Williamson out for the Pelicans. For Denver, you've got the Joker and Austin Rivers probable. I definitely believe they play. Zeke Naji is the only questionable tag for Denver. Canchar, Murray, and Porter remain out, but some of those guys should be back pretty soon. As far as statistically, you got slow teams, Pels 22, Denver 21, which is surprising that this totals 227.5 with really, slower basketball. But the Pels are playing faster since CJ has come there. They're getting a lot more transition hoops. So that's why that number is where it is. Defensively, pretty average, 18th and 15th. So nothing to write home about there. So really, the fact that based on the numbers, and I look at this and we do this every day, you would think that total should be about 223. So for it to be 227.5 is a bit surprising. I'm not saying dive on the under here. It's just that, Vegas is that sharp. The Pels are playing so much better, and they're playing more open style of basketball with the moves that they made. I think that that's why you're seeing this price or this total. And I think, this game could go even over that. So I think you want some exposure here. I like the way the direction, the way both these teams are going at the moment. CJ McCollum at 8.8, I've loved him. I played him a lot. He was fantastic for me the other day, but he never saw the court for 1 second in the fourth quarter because they blew him out. And that was gut-wrenching. So don't let that number scare you because he would have blown through value. I mean, he still had a good game even in 3 quarters. So he's in play for me. Brandon Ingram at 8.3, fair price for a guy that can certainly also blow up the scoreboard. I mean, those are the two guys that are really becoming a two-man team here as far as really scoring the ball. The guys that have been left in the dust a little bit are your 3 guys that we've played quite a bit this year because their value's been decent. That's Herb Jones, Jackson Hayes, and Jonas Valanciunas. They're 4.4, 4.9, and 7.3. So the prices are still good, but, I'm not sure that, how you really want to look at this. I think that the fact that their usage is down and they're bringing Devontae Graham and Tony Snell and these guys off the bench, I still think the focus needs to be on McCollum and Ingram. And yes, you can get some value with the other guys, but they're not blowing it up. I've taken Jackson Hayes a couple of times recently, and he's okay, but the ceiling's not quite there because they're really rotating guys out. He'd be the guy if I did need one more value spot, but I think it's focus on the 2 main wheels for the Pelicans. Try to get one of them in there. For Denver, I'm expecting the Joker to be back. We saw what DeMarcus Cousins did the last game, which was mind-bending at his age, being out of the game, on and off with different teams, that he could put up. I think he had a 60 burger. I think he was in the top 3 in DFS points that night, which at this point of his career is really amazing. It goes to show you what a talented young man he is and how all those injuries and setbacks really, he could have been a first-team all-star guy. There's no doubt about it, but sort of a career lost. A lot of that was because he was stuck in stinking Sacramento, and we know what a dumpster fire they are generally for the last 20 years, or not quite, maybe a little less. I do remember the years with Chris Webber and all those fun guys, but it's been a long time. Cousins, off the bench, I'm not going to go there. If for some reason the Joker sits, then can go right back to Cousins. 4.8 is fine. You got to expect regression, but if he regresses from 60 to 38 fantasy points, you're still good. So Cousins only if the Joker doesn't play. If the Joker does play, I really like him. I think he'll get Joe Val in foul trouble, and Hernan Gomez will come in there and try to chase him around a little bit. But I think the Joker, obviously, great play if he's in there. After that, though, I never feel good about the Nuggets. I know I say this every day, but I can't help it. Do you feel confident with Morris, Green, Gordon, the other Green, Highland, Forbes? I just can't take the risk there. The only guy you can always look at as the second banana here is either Will Barton at 6'3" or Aaron Gordon at 6'1". But there's a lot of times those guys disappoint or barely squeeze to their number. Don't see a whole lot of ceilings for either one of those guys. Barton's thrown a few in there, but not consistent enough for me. So I guess my point in this game is, roll the dice, go Joker and McCollum, or Ingram and McCollum, or Ingram and Joker. Any combination there, and really let it rip here and see if these guys can score the ball the way that the spread shows. All right, last game, late night sweat, lock washer game. I think not lock washer, but late night sweat game. And it's certainly a game that's going to be standing on its own and not going to be a tremendously fun game for DFS, in my opinion. You've got the Knicks at the Clippers. Clippers by 4.5, so that's nice. It's only 216.5, though. 106 for the Knicks, 110.5 for the Clippers. So if you're loading up on this late game, hoping to roll it home, that's pretty dangerous. The Knicks are 25-38. They have to be the most disappointing team in the NBA this season after being the number 4 seed last year. What a disaster there. Old Tibbs he burns teams out. He does it everywhere he goes. He plays them too much. He's too hard-nosed. Guys don't like playing for him, and they just end up fading, and he ends up getting fired. It's just been that pattern. For the Clippers, they're 34-31. It is the first night of a back-to-back for the Knicks as well, so not sure exactly. I do want to mention one thing I forgot the last game. It's the first night of a back-to-back for Denver, and I think that's why you're seeing the Joker being not sure if he's going to play or not, but I think he plays. I think they need him to beat the Pelicans, and I think he plays, but it is the first night of a back-to-back for there, so it's worth considering. For the Knicks, I don't think it really matters much. Tibbs doesn't really care about that kind of stuff, so it's pretty much let it roll here. For the Knicks, you've got Nerlens Noel, the backup center, questionable, and then Grimes, Rosen, Toppin are out. For the Clippers, the same 4. George, Leonard, Powell, Preston out. All right, statistically, Knicks 26th in pace, Clippers 15th. So they're not going to be flying up and down the floor. Both defenses well above average. Knicks 13th and the Clippers 8th. So you've got some good D, some slower pace. One of the teams on a back-to-back. Neither team playing exactly great ball right now. Makes it tough to load up on, but there are some guys worth discussing here. Alec Burks will drive you completely nuts if you try to play him. I don't suggest that at 5.7 or Fournier at 5.5. You never know. Those guys could be single-digit DFS points, even playing big minutes. So no trust there whatsoever. You're getting a little Quickly and Reddish and stuff in there too. So no thank you. You got to go right straight to the meat here. I mean, your options are really RJ Barrett, who's had some real ceiling games lately, is 7.9. Julius Randle is 9.2. He certainly has seemed, since all of the heat he's been taking, of really coming up and trying to play and prove himself that, it's not his fault. So those are the two guys you got to zone in on. That's no hot take by any stretch. Mitch Robinson at times can be okay. If Noel sits, you're still going to have Taj Gibson backing him up, so they're not going to overplay him, but certainly can get you some stocks at 5.6 if you want to pay down for center. especially if Joker plays and you can't get the value there with Cousins. After that, it's hard to go much deeper on the Knicks, how horrible they played. Plus, they're getting other guys in there now too, like Sims and a few guys. So not crazy about the Knicks tonight. The Clippers, Reggie's 8-7, which just seems too expensive to me. I know the backcourt for the Knicks does not defend well, and Jackson's had some really good games, but 8-7 is a big number. Probably not going to go there. Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey, Luke Kennard, those guys are all cheap. Mann's 5'9", Coffey's 3'6", Kennard's 4K. All have the ability to have a solid DFS night for you, but a lot of incurred risk with them as well. I think it's a little bit safer with Marcus Morris at 5'7", which is a fair price. He is disappointed. The other night, he absolutely was the only guy I had left on the board, and I just needed a nice little 25, nothing much, not even getting a 4X would have been fine. And he laid an egg. So I'm a little bitter at Morris. He's not been consistent at all. The Knicks do play slow and play some bully ball, so it's not the best situation for him. Zubats has been up and down. At 6'8", is now gotten a little too pricey. He had a stretch of decent games there, and I don't like that price. So, man, this game stinks all around. So maybe a flyer one-off on one side here, unless you really have enough salary to pay up for a Barrett or Randall. Those would be the two spots I'd go. I get it on Reggie, but that price is so high. Maybe a value piece of that group if you feel Mann is going to step up, or a Kennard. But not going to be my favorite game. Not going to have overexposure to it by any stretch of the imagination. So as my theme has been lately, I'm probably going to be trying to hang on for dear life as we go into that last game. But I may try to save some salary for either Barrett or Randall, so at least I have a nice gun left in that game. All right, that is it, my friends. I hope this 8-game breakdown of early slate, afternoon slate, main slate, whatever these sites are trying to do, hope it really helps you get it done. Hope you enjoyed the breakout. Appreciate you joining me here on your Sunday. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy it. Relax. Get some good NBA action in. And then after that, get ready to start a really hot Monday. Big week in the NBA. A lot of positionality going on of spots for the playoffs. So join us. Certainly, we're here 7 days a week in front of the paywall. Hit that thumbs up and subscribe button on the way out. If you want to join us, it's dfscoachtalk.com. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Certainly be back with you again tomorrow as we look to crush it in NBA DFS.